Hello everyone, my name's Stephen Redman and welcome to another episode of Pastor's Library. This is the channel where we discuss everything to do with theology books that might be on a reading list for a seminary course, for a bachelor's or master's degree in theology or in biblical studies, or simply books that may have piqued your interest or have been advertised to you with the benefit of added cookies on your internet stream. Whatever it is, with something to say, if you have any comments to add, please do so. You're very welcome. I do try to get back to everybody within a week or so. And if you can remember to subscribe and click on the bell, give us a like if you enjoy what we have to say today, then please do that because it helps with the algorithm. And all praise to the algorithm. So today I want us to talk about Bible dictionaries. I've done this before and I have talked at length about a number of good Bible dictionaries which I've had and used over the years. I suppose last time I sort of came down heavily on favour of the Baker Bible Dictionary, which I have to say I do like, and I have started going to that as my first point of call until I discovered yet another one. And this is another thank you to King Solomon, I think, of the making of many Bible dictionaries there can be no end. And that's where we are today, because I discovered the new Interpreter's Bible Dictionary, which comes in 5 volumes. 5 volumes that are very much like this one. They come in a hardbound state with a nice slip cover. The hardcover itself is red with black indent, and they're really nicely made. They clearly work well. I suppose I wanted to do this as much for me as for you because I wanted to justify having spent this much money. I managed to get 2 of these used, which I barely got a touch on them, both ex-library editions. And the other 3, I managed to get really good offers. But this is what happens when someone emails you and says, special offer today, volume 4 of the New Interpreter's Bible Dictionary for £14.99. And you think, wow, that's cheap. I'll order that straight away. And then, of course, you realise that some of the other ones are being advertised at £60 and £70. And then it becomes the hunt around to see if you can find them reasonably. So I guess I bought all 5 volumes of this for less than £100, but it isn't easy to find them at competitive prices. But what have we got here? Well, these are all published by Abingdon, so you know that this is going to have an Arminian tilt. It will not have determinism presupposed. And these were all published between 2006 and 2009. And the 5 volumes come to 4,816 pages. And that 4,816 pages, shall we call it 5,000 and round up slightly? Those 5,000 pages are substantially bigger than any of the 1-volume dictionaries that I've talked about before. So our Baker Bible Dictionary, which I will going to refer to a little bit today as a comparison, which I've done a full review on before, that one is literally less than 2 volumes in pages of this. So in these 5 volumes, do we get value for money? Is there anything worthwhile about them? What's the difference? Or should I just keep on with my Baker Bible Dictionary? Well, of course, I'm going to have to find usefulness for them anyway. So what usefulness have I found? Right. So what I would say here is that we've got a great deal of detail, things that maybe there wouldn't be that much detail on in others. For example, here I have got all of these for the letter A, and you'll see we get a big page saying that we changed the letter B. So this is a substantial piece of work. There have been some really good commentators, theologians, names that you would recognise and leap off the page at you that have been involved in this. And I have to say, overall, I would say that they've done very well with this. Just to sort of give you some sort of idea. There is a section on the book of Amos that tells you all about its literary features, its content, its socio-historical content, its key themes, its contemporary relevance. And there are over 6 whole pages on the book of Amos. Now, whatever way you look at that, you don't get anywhere near 6 pages in other dictionaries. But this is tantamount to a very good précis of what you should expect from Amos. So if, for example, you were going to preach through the prophecy of Amos, then you might well start with these 6 pages to orientate yourself so you understand the historical context of the book and get a sense for where the theology of it is going. And I think 6 pages is probably enough to set you going on that. So I would suggest this has really got something to offer. When it gets to the letter C in canon, we've got 26 pages on the canon of the Bible. Those are divided into the canon of the New Testament, the canon of the Old Testament. And at the end of each section, there's a full bibliography. So not only can you see in roughly 13 pages per testament what the authors are saying, but you can see where they have taken their information from. And I think that is really, really helpful. Just to sort of find the sort of thing that wasn't in the Baker dictionary. Clay tablets. There's a section that's a couple of paragraphs long, and of course clay tablets, it explains to you what they were, their historical relevance, and whereas this is maybe not a big biblical deal, it is very relevant to the way that we see all the information presented and preserved. And so I do think that it is a relevant point. Moving on to volume 2, which is D to H. In here, I've just highlighted a couple of things. For example, dolmens. Now, who's ever heard of them? I certainly haven't. Although when I realise it, I've been to visit some. Dolmens are prehistoric funerary structures that are usually in the shape of a table, a stone table, which makes my mind go back to, of course, Aslan's death in The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. But whereas it's not a biblical word, it's a contextual word for our Bibles, and it's a relevant word to the days in which the books were written, and I think it is important. So what have we got there? We've got half a page on that one issue, including a picture, which you may be able to zoom in and see. And that's a really helpful aside. Going back to true biblical words, if you go and look up Ephraim, then you get a full page diagram of where the tribes of Israel were seated, and that's a very clear map and very helpful one too. Under F, you've got 3 pages of feminist interpretation, and if like me you read so-and-so's written this book and it offers a feminist interpretation, you immediately go, what's that going to talk to me about? Well, this section, which is 3 full pages, explains what people are doing with that. And whereas it might be easy for you and I to sort of just dismiss that, when you've read this, you'll decide whether or not it's fair to dismiss that. I don't think you ever should dismiss anything without reading about it at least. Now, in the Baker Bible Dictionary, there are 3 pages devoted to God. In here, there are 34 pages devoted to God. That will include, for example, divine names and what they all mean, but it will give you an Old Testament view and a New Testament view of God. And this is really, really helpful. 34 pages. You want to know, fundamentally, what do we believe about God? Well, you will get an awful lot here in this dictionary 34 pages of what you might believe about God. So that is really, shall we say, an obvious inclusion, which you can see the amount of detail more that you're getting in this 5-volume, I want to call it an encyclopedia really, because it's much more of an encyclopedia than a dictionary. Hammurabi, which is an ancient ruler of Babylon in the 18th century before Christ, you will have heard of him, you will have understood implications for the book of Genesis, and there are 2 whole pages here on Hammurabi, and then there's a separate entry for the Code of Hammurabi, which is also interesting. So I'm trying there to give you a sense of scale of what you are getting from this book. Now, this is volume 3, which I have to say was the one that took me the longest to get hold of. One supplier said they'd sent it and never did, or if they did, it never arrived. And I finally managed to get hold of one, which I've only had this for just over a week, which tells you I've only just got round to doing this when I've had some of these volumes now for months. And you know, this is a real difference between the UK and the USA in particular, is that we don't have loads of these wonderful Bible bookstores to go in and gaze around. Our second-hand bookshops do not have big sections on theology. I mean, in general, they tend to be all moved off to one central depot if they feel they've got any worth. And the rest of them, I would imagine, get burned. But the truth is that this is a really excellent advantage you Americans have. And I tell you, I remember some of my trips across the pond with great warmth to walk around Mardell's in Little Rock. Oh, what a great store. So, a lovely section on Jericho, talking about its geography, its history. It even shows you a human skull from Jericho between 6,000 and 7,000 years before Christ. And as you go through this, you will just find useful illustrations, useful photos throughout. There's not on every page, by a long shot actually, but they are there, they're relevant, they break up the text, they add interest, and I think they're really, really excellent. Moving on to the 4th volume, this one is between M and R, and here you have got some really interesting entries. I mean, I look at a page like this and I see Quadratus is the earliest known Christian Apologist. Now, I had never heard of him, but there's an entry here. And it's really good that there is always an entry for people names. Quartus, who you'll remember is listed in the end of Romans, who Paul calls him our brother. It's likely that the 6 lines you've got here, all that is known, or maybe will ever be known, this side of heaven. But it's all the same very, very useful. Now, righteousness is a word we all use, but truthfully, isn't it a big issue that we talk about righteousness and sometimes we don't know what we mean? Do we mean a state of moral perfection? Well, some Christians do mean that, but what this book does is it gives you 6 pages defining righteousness, and it presents it as a relational term, which, if I go back to my Sunday school days, I see righteousness as right standing before God. And I think that, and bear in mind, in England, Sunday school is something that kids do when the adults have got the main church on. So I'm talking about presented to a child. But I still hold on to that definition because I still see righteousness as a relational word, as does the author of this section. Not only have you got these 6 full pages on righteousness, but you have got a good bibliography at the end of the section on what you want to read further about it. So this 5-volume dictionary, I have to say, has now become my volumes of choice, my dictionary of choice. I'm still going to refer to Nelson's. I'm still going to refer to Baker's. I'm still going to refer to some of the others I have. But frankly, I will look in the New Interpreter's Dictionary first because it's got a greater range of terms and it will tell me the things that I want to know for sure. Fundamentally, I can find in the New Interpreter's Bible Dictionary an entry for almost anything I could think of. For example, I thought of our dear late friend Michael Heiser and his discussion about the sons of God in Genesis chapter 6. And in this dictionary, there is a whole section tacked onto the end of the pages about God, Son of God, Sons of God. And the sons of God, it talks about Genesis 6, and it talks about them in terms that Michael Heiser would have approved of, I would suggest. But in all of these things, this is a great wealth of detail. And when you look at the pages and pages of contributors, I would love to know what some of them got paid for doing this, because the amount of detail they've had to contribute for a standard reference work which is not going to be widely purchased, because who has got the money for 5 volumes of this? If I'd have seen this before I'd bought other dictionaries, I probably still would have bought 1 or 2 of them. But I would have worked my way up to this. I mean, for about 3 months, all I had was volume 1, A to C. And I thought, if anybody asks me anything about letters A, B and C in the Bible, I'm really set up. But when you've got this set, I would suggest to you, you've probably got the reference standard. Unless someone's now going to show me a 24 volume, which I haven't got room for that, I'm sorry. But realistically, I think this is a brilliant piece of work, one which will last the centuries out probably, because quite frankly, Bible dictionaries, there isn't a lot more that we can do with them. But I am very grateful for the authors and the editorial team, and very grateful for everybody that contributed. I hope that's helped you. I hope it's piqued a bit of interest in you. If it has, please remember to leave us a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. And remember to click on the bell, and that way you'll know when we next release another episode of Pastor's Library. Remember to leave me a comment as well, because that helps. And I'm always pleased to try and answer you. So until next time, everybody, all I've got to say for you now is bye.